Hello and welcome to the first of a series of short videos looking at CMI Unit 701 Strategic Leadership. If you've seen my introductory video, you'll know that we need three essential pieces of paper. We need the assignment brief, we need the indicative content guidance from the syllabus, and we need the command verb definitions document. So let's have a look at task 1. The first page of the assignment and a couple of basic housekeeping jobs that you need to do. If you have a look at the previous screenshot closely, you'll see that there's a candidate name, unit number and qualification in the header on the top of the document. This should be put in so that you identify your work on each page. We know if one's lying on the desktop where it's come from. And you'll also notice that I've put a paragraph in above task 1, which just provides a little bit of information and context for the CMI assessor about the candidate. It's not included in the word count. In fact, you could even put brackets underneath it, not included in word count, provided for context or something similar. But whilst your CMBD tutor will get to know you, somebody double checking or moderating your work at CMI doesn't know who you are, and it provides good background and a little bit of an introduction as to where you're coming from as they read through your assignment. So we've popped our name in the header, we've written a short paragraph to tell the CMI who we are, and now we're going to move on to task 1. Now the first thing to consider is word count. On page 2 of the assignment brief there's a table showing how the CMI expects you to use your 4,000 to 4,500 words. And you'll see that for task 1, where we have to write a report covering the points in 1.1 and 1.2, that we have a total of 1,000 words available. That's not a huge amount, so we need to be economical and we need to make sure that we use those words well. Before we have a quick look at that guidance in the syllabus, let's also consider the command verb. We are required to critically appraise. So if we refer to the command verb definitions document, appraise is to assess, estimate the worth, value, quality, performance of, consider carefully to form an opinion. And critically, typically used to qualify such verbs, give in-depth insight. So in other words, we need to do our homework. So let's move on and specifically look at the instructions and the guidance for task 1, which is considerable. So let's have a look at some of the specific instructions and guidance, and I've got a copy of the assignment brief here by my side, which I will refer to. So we've got 2 subheadings within our report. We've got the impact of organisational context, etc., and we've got the role of the strategic leader, etc. There's a box with guidance for completion of task 1. The report must be based on an organisation that you know well or have researched. The perfect organisation is your own, of course, if you have good knowledge of that, or maybe an organisation you've worked for previously. The report must include well-chosen examples, so we need to go out and find those. The report should include subheadings, already quickly mentioned that. Your report must be underpinned with relevant theories, and please refer to the indicative content for the assessment criteria outlined in the unit specification. That's the syllabus. Now, when we start to look at the indicative content in the syllabus, there's a lot of information. For example, for 1.1, when we're looking at the context, where you need to, for example, describe the context that your own organisation exists in, which you're then going to compare with another one. You've got purpose, strategic narrative, and. You don't need to refer to all of those. Pick out 3 or 4 that have the biggest impact on the context of your organisation. If you're a charitable organisation, then some of those will fit much better than if you are a commercial organisation, for example. Also notice that in that indicative content for organisational context, they mention a couple of potential references. There's Johnson and there's the Carnegie Mellon Maturity Index. Just because it's in there doesn't mean you have to use it, but often they are appropriate, or you can find something else. Within each section, a couple of appropriate references is around about the right amount. Remember that we are critically appraising, so part of that is contrasting and comparing. You may have an organisation in mind which you can compare to your own, but in the learning journey for 701 there is a case study on General Motors and its chief exec at the time, which may or may not be useful, but it's worth having a look at. The final part of 1.1 is we've had a look at the context, so therefore what's the impact that has. And again, in the indicative content, lots of thought provokers. We've got structure, might have issues in terms of commitment to corporate social responsibility. There may be issues around changing and innovating, so on and so forth. As for the previous section, you don't need to talk about them all. Just pick out the ones that work in describing the impact that maybe the context has on your organisation and comparing it with the impact it may have on your comparator. So we've got 1.1 where we've looked at the context of the organisation and the impact that has, and we're now going to move on to 1.2, which is the role of the strategic leader within that context, bearing in mind those impacts. Now, I'm not going to put a screenshot up because the bullet points under this section in the syllabus are numerous. There's lots of them. Now, again, you don't have to use them all. There are some that would be very appropriate, for example, for a manufacturing company. There's others that would be very appropriate for a charity or a retail business or a service industry. Read through all those bullet points and pick out the 3, maybe 4 that you think work for you in your examples. Remember at the end of both 1.1 and 1.2 to form an opinion. How important do you think context is? How major do you think the impact is? How dramatically different is the role of the strategic leader in this scenario as opposed to that circumstance? Just always refer back to the command verb definition and just kind of double check, do a reality check that you've met the criteria. Just a quick word on referencing. You are required to reference any external source or piece of work or theory or website that you have referred to. And I've already mentioned that Microsoft Word has a pretty good inbuilt facility. When you're within Microsoft Word, there's a tab at the top called References. Selecting that gives you the option to insert a citation, to use a previous citation that you've already entered, and finally at the end of your assignment to insert the bibliography. The screenshot I put up shows one of the boxes that drops down when you insert a citation. That particular one is for a web page, but you've got options for books, journals, etc. It's fairly intuitive and fairly self-explanatory, but if you have any issues with it, your tutor will be delighted to show you around it. So let's summarise and try and bring it all together. Where possible, write your assignment in the first person about your own experiences, observations, and ideally your organisation, which you maybe compare with somebody else. Word count is tight. Make good use of the referencing, and if required, remember the evidence booklet is there to incorporate other documents if you want to make a point. You're probably not going to get it right first time. That doesn't matter. Send your drafts to your tutor, book video chats to discuss your work, and we can soon get the assignment technique sorted out. So that concludes this little tutorial for the first task in 701. I hope you found it useful and thank you for listening.